Deep in the heart of Central Africa lies Zambia. Close to the northern border with Zaire, the Kafue River begins its 1,600-kilometer journey southward to join with the mighty Zambezi River. This, then, is the story of 6 men with supporting teams who attempted to navigate the length of the Kafue River. A minute sunbird, a giant marabou stork, part of the rich bird life of the headwaters. Darters drying their wings after a fishing expedition. The shy heron waiting for a meal. The busy plover hunting for its food, and the occasional crocodile on a mudbank. The early stages of the river presented difficulties to the expedition, with overhanging branches and converging reed beds which made progress slow.
I'm Peter Booth, one of the boat pilots. My involvement with Kafuex started over a year ago. In the last few months, my energies have been devoted towards the minute planning details. Now that I am on the river, I've had time to really consider the problems that lie ahead.
I'm Bill Thomas, a development manager for a departmental store group. The big attraction of the Kafuex expedition for me is that in an age of uniformity, this is going to be a first. The story of Kafuex is something we will be able to tell our grandchildren.
I'm Peter Apsey, a banker by profession. This trip down the Kafue River will be without doubt one of the highlights of my 14 years in Zambia. When the opportunity arose to join the expedition, I naturally jumped at the chance of visiting places which had up until now just been names in dusty books.
Culmer, a printing works manager and leader of the Kafuex expedition. After many months of meticulous planning, dealing with a wide variety of problems and inevitable setbacks, it is hard for me to believe that we are now finally underway.
I am Dean Wright, the granddad of the expedition. I am project manager for a large retailing company. I have spent most of my free time messing around on rivers, and it was this long experience with boats that caused me to be asked to join the expedition. I am sure the challenge of the lesser-known parts of the river will provide me with an experience of a lifetime.
Ready?
Yep, me.
Oh, sorry, Bill. What am I going to eat this week?
You're going to pinch my chair?
No, I wouldn't do a thing like that to you, Dean. Essential McQuay?
What are these blackguts in this queue? What?
No,
burn.
No, I think it's...
Just plain, ordinary, common or garden burn?
Yeah, I think so. Mind you, the pot, the enamel is coming off.
Shouldn't do that.
Might be that.
Well, they've had a bit of a hammering.
Yeah.
But it's true, the one that I use...
Bit of petrol in the one we cooked in that yesterday.
The one that I use normally I've had for years, and no sign of enamel peel at all.
And probably isn't it?
No, I think it lasts as well.
Our 5th day on the river saw us setting off from our overnight camp on a bright, chilly morning, watched by bemused villagers fishing on the riverbank. According to our route maps, a fair-sized rapid lay ahead, some 4 hours of steady boating. It is evident from our nervous conversation that everyone is thinking about how we're going to shape up as a team, as this is our first large rapid. Soon the rapid was upon us, and as we cautiously inched our way into the headwaters, I could feel the tension rising. Seconds later, we were committed to our line of approach, and into the white water. We careered onwards, the river having its own way with us, and as we were hurled down the drop, we nearly broke the boat's back. Our test over, we stopped and waited for Peter's turn.
I felt quite terrified as we approached our first rapid. I had seen the first boat disappear over the edge and wasn't quite sure which route had been taken. I was also unsure as to how the boat would handle in fast water. The engine was cut and lifted. We were committed. The crash of water around us grew steadily louder as we tried to control the head-on rush of the boat. We were through, completely soaked but exhilarated. A current caught us and threatened to push us against the rocks. Our efforts in combined paddling pulled us away from this danger. After this hair-raising experience, it was resolved that a thorough recce would precede all whitewater navigation.
I'm Dave Fairhurst, a chartered accountant by profession, but having lived in Africa for 30 years, I've developed a deep interest in the bush. I'm on the expedition partly to satisfy my own ego, the challenge of the river and sense of achievement, and also, as an honorary wildlife ranger, I'm entitled to carry firearms in the country's national parks and would therefore be able to afford some protection to the expedition. The fish eagle is Zambia's national emblem. It is regal in appearance and has a truly majestic call. The river was full, but within its banks, and most days the sun blazed out of a clear blue sky, although the early mornings could still greet us with a nip in the air and mist rising from the water's surface. The tree-lined river banks gave way to grassy dambos which supported a variety of wildlife, easily observed from the boats.
That must be the way to do it.
That is the way to do it.
Otherwise, the boats are going to have to sit and wait and wait and wait.
I don't know where or what, and we could go sailing past.
Do the same as we did today.
Well, then we've got
After a day on the water, the relaxation of camp life is something to look forward to. It is here you can put your feet up and think about the highlights of the day's travel, while the backup team, who have already pitched camp and hung out the day's washing, take a well-earned rest before preparing the evening meal. After eating, it was pleasant to watch the sun go down, while some of the crew members tried their hand at fishing.
Okay, fellows, let's head off from Twebby, huh?
Let's go. Are we in any pedal? Down, all together.
After seeing the boats off, backup would have 5 minutes to themselves before starting on the mammoth task of striking camp. A day's drive from one camp to the next took anything from 4 to 7 hours.
The directions became more and more like a treasure hunt. Left at the Kimberley brick house, right along the footpath between two trees, right again at the first mud hut, and so on. Punctures became a regular occurrence, and the problems involved in jacking a fully laden Land Rover in boggy conditions, high enough to replace a totally flattened tyre with a fully inflated tyre, have to be seen to be believed. Between the four Land Rovers, we had a total of 6 spare tyres, punctured tyres being accumulated until we reached places where they could be repaired. On the section from Machia to Ngabwe, it took us an hour and a half to travel a quarter of a mile. At one stage, we had 2 Land Rovers stuck in a dambo, slowly sinking up to their skirts in mud.
The dirt roads produced inevitable dust clouds, and it was this that caused me to swerve off the track and into a swamp. It took 2 days to locate a crane to pull the Land Rover out. Fortunately, despite damage to the vehicle, we are still able to continue with our journey. Feeding the expedition was a major operation. Usually we cooked too much, but there was never any food left over, as one of the boat party in particular always made it his duty to finish off any surplus. All the cooking was done on charcoal cookers and on open fires. Numbers varied, but generally we cooked for 15 to 16 people. It was difficult to judge the amount of food that we had to prepare.
Levy, can you tell them the breakfast is ready, please?
Come back.
Bacon and eggs, sometimes slightly overcooked, with baked beans and toast or fried bread were the main ingredients for breakfast. The evening meals usually consisted of stews, curries, or dried meat, with either nshima rice or sometimes potatoes. Fried fish made a welcome change on a few occasions. Backup's job was quite exhausting, and we were often on the go for 13 to 14 hours a day.
No rapids on the tip.
No. And we finally have that big
My
rapid.
God. Look at that one. I hope the signposts in it.
Well,
Have you got
no
aerial photographs?
We've got aerial photographs of that. We'll have to walk it then.
Yeah, you need a
12.5
lot of
kilometres.
walking in there. That road there doesn't go that way anymore.
And the lake comes up to somewhere down here.
So this is the last rapid before we get into the lake?
That's
it.
the last
That's the
delight.
lake.
That's the last
Dinger.
And this is where we enter the Kafue National Park.
The Kafue National Park is the 4th largest national park in the world, being over 22,000 square kilometres in area, approximately the size of Wales. Although the park has a large recorded variety of wildlife, most of our observations were restricted to those animals frequenting the riverside, mainly crocodile and hippo. These large beasts were often very confused by the sound of our motors and gazed balefully at us as we passed by. Frequent sightings of crocodiles were a constant reminder of the danger within the river.
Kafue Rapid. There was tension in the boats as we put on life jackets, fastened our helmets and tied down loose objects. In the event, there were no prizes, no big shoots, just 2 kilometers of careful paddling, eyes straining for the telltale V of water, showing the rocks lurking just beneath the surface. It's a wonderful feeling to be careering through fairly rough water, conscious of the sounds of the river, without the constant drone of the motor. Kafue was one of the rapids we had been fearing, and it was a bit of an anticlimax. What we didn't realize at this stage was that the river still held many surprises for us.
Shortly after Kafuala, we came across further small rapids, but by now we'd established a pattern of first choosing a safe route, not necessarily the easiest, and then one after the other, with engines lifted, we paddled our way around the various obstacles, through the inevitable stopper wave, to calmer water beyond.
Long stretches of shallow water like this provided us with paddling practice, and we found that back paddling was the most effective way of controlling the boats.
Whilst reconnoitring a section of rapid from a rocky island, we disturbed a large crocodile that had been basking in the sun. This rapid thereafter became known to us as Croc Island Rapid. The single most dangerous feature of this rapid was a monstrous hole between huge waves that appeared in the middle of the chute. Fortunately, however, both crews were able to avoid this hazard, and the stopper wave, which otherwise would have swamped the inflatables and possibly provided a meal for the lurking crocodile.
Further downstream, we came upon a narrow rapid. The main problem here was keeping the bow of the boat in front so as to avoid the possibility of being flipped over or being turned towards the rocks on our left. By now, our skill at handling the boat had improved a great deal. Here we had all the conditions that make up the average rapid, plus a longer than usual chute, ending in a stopper wave and followed by 3 or 4 standing waves with a quiet eddy on one side.
The worst times were whilst waiting for the results of the reconnaissance. But once a decision was made, no time to think. Down we go, and suddenly a wonderful elation at having beaten the river at its own game.
Oh, this is pretty good too. Oh, yeah, we spun beautiful. We spun on this one. Dead ahead.
Yeah, you rode it. We threw it
the stopper, the turner, and the flipper.
Whilst at Chunga Safari Camp, most of us managed to get in a fair amount of game viewing, although to do justice to the vastness of Kafue Game Park, one should spend at least 3 weeks there, if not longer. In Zambia's largest game park, wherever we travelled, there was always an abundance of zebra and the many branches of the antelope family. And it was delightful to observe the grace of these animals compared to our constant river companion, the hippo. Just over 300 kilometres from Zambia's capital, Lusaka, it is an easy drive to visit this great wilderness and gaze at the animals living in a totally natural manner, only interrupted by the passing of tourists' vehicles. Although we visited only 3, there are 7 tourist camps in the park, and each has its own speciality. Some boast of good fishing, while others talk of how many lions they've seen that day. Buffalo roam in huge herds of over 1,000 to the north, and lion and elephant traverse the length and breadth of the park. For bird-watching enthusiasts, over 400 species of birds have been recorded throughout the area.